Here we are, ready to talk about romance movies. We're talking chick flicks here, a derided form of entertainment that I don't just believe is culturally significant, but I also think deeply impacts our lives and how we see the world. These movies shape our ideas of love, of friendship, of body image, aging, apartment sizes, and careers. So let's do it. Let's study them. Here is Tamar Jeffers McDonald, who's a professor in film history at the University of Brighton and is the author of one of the most important books on romantic comedy called Romantic Comedy: Boy Meets Girl Meets Genre.
I think what I like about romantic comedies is the way they're bolted together. They're so obvious on the surface, but the more you look at them, the more you can unpick, and the more they reflect contemporary society, the society of the time that made them.
And society, from 1989 to 2001, decided that we wanted to be reflected in Meg Ryan. There was, of course, also Julia Roberts and Sandra Bullock. But just before then, setting the tone for the post-Diane Keaton era of rom-coms was Meg. Meg Ryan is our theme for the next 10 episodes of our new season. We will be watching her in Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, French Kiss, and Kate and Leopold. Today we start with Sleepless in Seattle, the movie that Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey watched together on their date in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Oh, it's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, me too. Shh. What if something had happened to you?
Sleepless in Seattle was written and directed by Nora Ephron and was released on June 25th, 1993, the day after I turned 11 years old and the day my father was going in for brain surgery. Whenever my family wants to remember the date of my dad's surgery, we Google Sleepless in Seattle because we all went to see the first showing to keep my dad distracted from the fact that he wasn't allowed to eat all day until his late evening surgery. We went to that and not to Jurassic Park, which was released just a few weeks before, because my dad was a huge Nora Ephron fan. And I mention that because our first three movies are not just Meg Ryan movies, but Meg Ryan movies in which she worked with the writer and eventual director, Nora Ephron. Ephron is considered one of the defining voices of the modern romantic comedy. Here's Tamar Jeffers McDonald again. She's going to refer to Heartburn, a film Ephron wrote, which was based on Ephron's marriage to Bernstein of Woodward and Bernstein.
It's interesting that Heartburn is much more realistic and not really a romantic comedy because she doesn't get what she wants. It all breaks up. And the fact that she could see very clearly how romance could go wrong, I think is a really interesting counterpoint to how she presents it as a fantasy that's gone right. So she's very well aware of people having affairs and sex going wrong and relationships going wrong and marriages going wrong and how children get caught up in that and how sometimes you're prepared to settle for bad things because you're worried about your kids. It's just the whole nexus of complexity that makes a relationship hang together for longer than maybe it would do otherwise, which is messy, and you don't get that stuff in romantic comedies, which are pruned down.
Sleepless in Seattle does actually include cheating, but a very G-rated version of it. Sleepless is a fantasy world where, yes, mothers die, but soulmates exist, and you can find each other over radio waves. The movie was first conceptualized by Jeffrey Arch, who wrote the first script after attending a Tony Robbins seminar. It eventually came across Ephron's desk, who found the writing bad, but liked the premise. Sleepless is inspired by An Affair to Remember, the 1957 Cary Grant movie, in which two characters are set to meet on the top of the Empire State Building. In addition to being based on An Affair to Remember, the other high concept of the film is that its two main characters basically don't meet until the last 3 minutes of the film. Imagine having Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan on your cast and not putting them together on screen. Sleepless in Seattle follows Sam, played by Tom Hanks, a recent widow who relocates to Seattle with his son upon the death of his wife.
Mommy got sick. And it happened just like that. There's nothing anybody could do.
It also follows Annie, played by Meg Ryan, a newly engaged reporter from Baltimore.
Walter and I are engaged.
Sam's son, Jonah, calls a radio advice show on Christmas Eve, telling Dr. Martha Fieldstone that his dad needs a new wife.
You don't like the one he has now?
He doesn't have one now. That's the problem.
Where's your mom?
She died.
Annie, along seemingly with half of the women in America, listens to this radio program and falls in love with Sam. Letters start pouring in to Sam and Jonah from women. Annie writes one asking to meet them on Valentine's Day on top of the Empire State Building, just like in an affair to remember. But she decides to trash the letter. Luckily, her best friend Becky, played by Rosie O'Donnell, puts it in the mail. It's Jonah's favorite letter, and he becomes as obsessed with Annie as Annie is with Sam. Annie becomes so obsessed with Sam that she gets approval from her boss at the Baltimore Sun to fly to Seattle on assignment, lying to her fiancé. The power of the MFEO, the made-for-each-otherness between Annie and Sam, is so strong that as soon as Annie lands in Seattle, Sam notices her. He's at the airport dropping off his new girlfriend and spots Annie, following her like a cartoon dog having sniffed a ham. The following day, Annie follows Sam and Jonah. So much stalking in this movie. And Annie and Sam lock eyes for a second. They say hello to each other. And then Annie almost gets hit by a car. Another allusion to An Affair to Remember, where Deborah Carr does get hit by a car. Annie is so flustered by almost dying that she gets back into her own car and flies straight back to Baltimore, excited to be engaged to her fiancé Walter again for half a minute.
I'm so happy, Becky. Finally, I feel happy. This is right. This is real. Everything else is what happens when you watch too many movies and you completely lose sight of what counts.
The fact that Annie is engaged and yet actively pursuing another man is played not quite for laughs, but for hijinks. Here's Katrina Giltra, writer of Hollywood romantic comedy States of the Union, 1934 to 1965, on love triangles in romantic films.
The heroine might be with a man already, but he's not a real man in some sense. You know, I'm putting that in heavy quotation marks. He's very often represented as a bit too interested in his appearance or not very sexually powerful, or his job is not particularly impressive. This doesn't hold true for all of them by any means, but I think there is a sense in which the flip side of that is if the male star has a partner already, she's not very bright, or she's only interested in how she looks, she's a bit of an airhead. There's this sort of sense that they're just with the wrong person, but the wrong person isn't bad as such. They're just not witty enough, not smart enough, not interesting enough, not sexual enough. There are a couple of films in particular that struck me as interesting ones, which were where one of the main couple is engaged or going to get married, but the way that the jilted fiancé reacts is so bizarre. In those sorts of films, the jilted fiancé is jilted at the last moment and for no apparent reason just says, "That's nice, all right, thank you, sorry, I agree, that's fine." And they're just so lovely about it. There's no tantrums, there's no tears, they're just saying, "All right, good luck." And the power of the union of the right couple just seems to override everything else.
Like Professor Giltra discusses, Annie becomes more and more disillusioned with the idea of marrying the very sweet Walter, played fantastically by Bill Pullman. And she actually gets Bill Pullman to break up with her and encourage her to chase after her love. She leaves and runs to the top of the Empire State Building. Meanwhile, Jonah has run away from home, flown to New York City by himself, and has been waiting all day for Annie on the viewing deck of the Empire State Building. Sam and Jonah have an intensely sweet moment together when Sam eventually finds him.
What if something had happened to you? What if I couldn't get to you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And they decide to head back to Seattle just as Annie gets to the top of the building. We think they've missed each other, but luckily, Jonah has left his teddy bear on the viewing deck. So Sam, Jonah, and Annie all get to meet. Despite them never having had a conversation, despite Annie living in Baltimore and Sam and Jonah living in Seattle, despite Annie having been engaged 15 minutes ago, you can just tell these beautiful fools are gonna make it work. It's magic. I'm Vanessa Zoltan.
I'm Hannah McGregor.
And this is Hot and Bothered.
Oh my God. Incredible. Smooth. So smooth, like we've done it a million times.
Hannah McGregor, welcome to your first official episode of Hot and Bothered as co-host. Look at you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I am delighted to be here.
We are going to spend our first 5 movies talking about arguably just like the icon of the 20th century rom-com, Meg Ryan.
Oh, she's like a beautiful human text, just waiting to be close read.
I think that there should be a thesis, if there isn't one already, analyzing her hair and like where we were politically in any given moment. Like her hair is a rich text.
Yeah. I'm tempted to say like, as Meg Ryan's hair goes, so goes the nation, you know, like it feels like it's almost sort of like telling us a lot about white femininity and gender in any given moment.
So today we're talking about Sleepless in Seattle. First question that I have for you is, what does this movie believe about love?
Gosh, it believes a lot of things, and some of those things, intriguingly, seem to be contradictory, if not outright mutually exclusive. Like, it believes in, like, soulmates and destiny and magic, but also doesn't seem to believe in magic to the point that magic can overcome anything, because the movie opens with Sam and his son Jonah at the funeral for Jonah's mom and Sam's wife. And the sort of central concern for those characters is Sam's determination that he had his soulmate, that is done now, and that he will spend the rest of his life, I guess, alone, mourning this person. So right away, we've got this sense that like love is a once in a lifetime magical thing, but maybe also twice in a lifetime.
I think that Sam thinks it's once in a lifetime. I don't think that the movie thinks it's once in a lifetime. I think the movie believes in magic. There is a moment where Sam is on the radio being interviewed about his deceased wife. And the interviewer says, "What was it about your wife?" And he says the word magic at the same moment that Annie says magic. And Annie's mom is like, "Your father and I fell in love the second we touched because it was magic." There's this recurring, like, there is magic. And I think when Sam's wife dies, he doesn't necessarily think he's going to be alone again. He just thinks he's never going to find magic again. And I think what the movie believes is like, actually, the world is full of magic. And that a lot of us compromise for not magic.
Yeah. So Sam's sort of journey is coming to believe that magic can happen more than once. And Annie's journey is coming to believe in magic at all, because she's very practical. You know, her sort of functional belief about love, which the movie disagrees with, is that it's like a practical decision that you make and you find somebody you can get along with just fine and who you respect and who treats you well, and that is a person to partner with. Her fiance is so lovely.
He wants to know the names of all of her siblings and cousins and who's related to who. He is planning when to go registering for her. He knows her ring size. I don't know. This is a good man.
He's so thoughtful. And I think he kind of has to be a good man for the movie's argument about magic to work. Because if Walter was no good, it would be easier to say, like, oh, you know, here's the hard stuff about a real relationship and then the fantasy about an imagined relationship. But Walter's great. Like, their relationship really works. It's just not magic.
They even have simultaneous orgasms.
Do they?
She says that to her mom. Her mom is like, it might not be clockwork at first. And she's like, it's working like clockwork.
My reading of the term clockwork is very different, Vanessa. I feel like it's sort of like functional for them.
Yeah.
Like 9:30 p.m., time to do sex now. But there's no like heat.
But I do think that a lot of people treat good marriages as if like clockwork scheduled sex is actually great. You schedule it in, you talk about it, you make it work like clockwork. We're both busy people with jobs. And they have romance, right? They like go out dancing. It's not like they are an aromantic couple.
No.
So no, I take that conversation as her being like, yeah, the sex is great. It's not mind-blowing, but it's great.
Yeah, it's working. And that's what the relationship is, right? Like clockwork is really key there. The relationship is working. And it's really interesting to compare that, like this character, Annie, who's in a relationship that's working, who doesn't really believe in magic, whose life is quite structured and controlled. And on the other hand, we've got Sam and Jonah, who are deep in the experience of grief and have relocated to the other side of the country, away from their support networks. And we get a lot of scenes of Sam struggling through being a single parent. And so the movie is concerned about romantic love, undeniably, but it's also really interested in parenting and in the way in which Sam shows up for Jonah, because the motivation for Sam to even start thinking about dating again is the fact that Jonah wants him to. That like Jonah wants a mom, Jonah wants his dad to be happy. And we see Sam like, yeah, fighting those ideas, you know, being the parent, but we also see him really caring what his kid is saying he needs and really actually trying at the end of the day to like put himself back out there, in large part because of this like messy, difficult, complex, like not really magical relationship he has with his child.
Yeah, this movie does seem to believe that like children's purity makes them magical, right? Once Sam is on Dr. Marsha Fieldstone's radio show, he starts getting hundreds of letters from women offering to meet him. And Jonah is the one who reads a letter from a woman from Baltimore and is like, this is the person who I want to be my new mom. And the real justification that seems to be like, kids, they just know. They haven't unlearned their natural intuition yet.
Yeah. Ultimately, the moment that allows the two of them to meet each other circles around the sort of talisman of Jonah's teddy bear. So right in that final scene where Jonah has taken off across the country from Seattle to New York to meet Annie on the roof of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day, because that's what she said in the letter. And he's like, my dad's not going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go find my new mom.
To be clear, it's the top deck. Jonah's not going to the roof, just for anyone worried about Jonah.
Right on the very top of the spire. Just balanced on top. Yes.
But please continue. Yes.
Yeah. So Sam, obviously, finding out that his child has flown solo across the country to New York City, follows him. It's Sam who finds Jonah and is like, I'm so sorry that I wasn't listening to you. I was so worried. I'm so glad you're okay. And leaves with him. And accidentally, they leave behind Jonah's backpack. And they depart, and Annie arrives and finds the observation deck empty except for the backpack. And opens it up and sees the teddy bear. And it's in that moment, like the moment when she sees the teddy bear is the moment where Jonah and Sam come back. So there is this like sense that Jonah is the vehicle through which the magic operates. But the film's not, in general, particularly romantic about parenting.
Right.
Like, it's hard, and I like that.
Me too.
I like that we see that it is hard and that they fight and that Sam loves Jonah really profoundly and that Sam takes the emotional labor of fatherhood seriously. I think that's part of what makes him like an exciting romantic prospect for the many women listening to him on the radio. But I think, for us as viewers, it's also part of what makes us believe that he is a good person, is that we see him like showing up and doing the hard work of parenting his child.
The part of this movie that makes me cry, I really do think every time I've seen it, is when Sam finds Jonah on the deck of the Empire State Building. And Sam says to Jonah, "What would I have done if I had lost you? You're all I've got." And like every time, right? Like you just feel Sam's desperation, which is something else that I actually really like about this movie. This movie does believe that the relationship between a parent and a child is more important than a romantic relationship, right? Like the big declaration of "I would die without you" is from a father to a son. It is not to a romantic partner.
Yeah. I would say the film's more intriguingly ambivalent on the topic of romantic love, particularly when it comes to what women want.
Yeah. Do I think that this movie has a cohesive idea of what women want? I think that the movie thinks that some people don't wait for magic and that maybe we should all wait for magic, or at least that like we all could find magic.
Yeah. And that couldness, not a word, that couldness, that possibility of us all finding magic, I think really hinges on Meg Ryan as an actor and how important it is that she functions as a relatable figure. So can we talk a little bit more about Meg Ryan?
Yes. The thing that's amazing about Meg Ryan in this movie is how, like borderline criminal her behavior is in the film.
I think it's actually criminal. I think she does some fraud on the internet.
Yes. Like this is like pre-internet where like there are special databases for journalists, and she's a journalist at the Baltimore Sun. And she finds Sam through like dishonest means and flies to Seattle. Embezzling from the Baltimore Sun, right? It's like a work trip. And stalks him. And Meg Ryan in her full Meg Ryan-ness is so deeply adorable and non-threatening that you are watching this and you're like, oh, kooky hijinks.
Yeah.
Like there's no part of you that's like, lady, you are behaving inappropriately. Instead, you're like, you do it, lady. You're entitled to find your magic because you're adorable.
Mm-hmm. Because you have just the thickest French braid anybody's ever seen, and you wear scarves with this kind of careless perfection that is like, a scarf has never looked that way on me.
And she like forgets everything, right? I'm excited as we talk about these movies to think about why women are often portrayed as forgetful or klutzy. And as a klutzy, forgetful woman, I'm like, oh, I should just have men throwing themselves at me all the time because I am adorable.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I think is really fascinating about Meg Ryan as she is portraying Annie in this particular movie, but also as a figure in general, is that for me, she really represents a version of white femininity that hinges on the concept of relatability. And so she is a kind of quote unquote every woman. And so she needs to not disdain the experiences and perspectives of the woman viewer. But her relatability also positions us so inherently as like automatically on her side that then her behavior, even when it becomes borderline criminal or outright criminal, I simply don't know what's against the law in the United States. But
me neither.
Bad behavior, that it's still like we're encouraged so much to identify with her that we, by extension, identify with that behavior. And that ties in as well to the trope of the rom-com heroine who has to be like a little klutzy or a little forgetful or a little, that imperfection is a really key part of relatability of like, oh, I also am like a little clumsy and a little forgetful and on occasion do a feminist writ in the workplace. And so I too could find love. And what I think is so key here is that it is really important that she is a conventionally attractive white woman, that she is, you know, thin and cis and all of these, she's checking all of these boxes for the every woman category, who is, of course, not every woman.
Right.
But she is also not like a model. She's not intimidatingly hot. Like, probably in real life, if you met Meg Ryan, she'd be intimidatingly hot. But the way that she's dressed, the way that she appears on screen.
Styled.
Yeah. That she feels like a person you might run into in a coffee shop. Like, she feels like a human who is in the world, who can somehow stand in for all women according to the cultural logics of this era of cinema and the rom-com of the 90s, etc. But like, just a black woman could not get away with any of the behavior that Annie is doing in this movie.
For sure.
Like, it's cute because it's Meg Ryan.
I do think a lot is done to make her super relatable in this movie. Like, she makes a joke at the dinner table that nobody else laughs at. She likes Christmas carols, right? Like, she's dorky, right?
Yeah.
Like, she is presented as dorky. And so I do think in this movie in particular, I think because of this, like, what you and I would consider worrisome behavior, the movie has to go really far out of its way to make her completely non-threatening.
Yeah. There's this moment really early on in the movie where she is driving somewhere on Christmas Eve. I think maybe like from her family to her fiance's family.
Correct.
And they're in separate cars. She's fallen a little behind because she had to go back into the house to grab something. So she's listening to the radio and she's listening to Christmas carols and sort of, you know, switching through stations, which is how she ends up hearing Sam on the radio. But she's just doing this little impression of a Christmas carol she's been listening to where she goes, horses, 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 horses. And I was like, perfect. A perfect filmic moment. In this moment, I love her.
Yep.
It's a silly little throwaway moment where she immediately becomes adorable, silly, a little dorky, you know, and then the behavior that follows sort of for me continues to like be the behavior of somebody who goes horses, 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 which is like, you don't always make great choices, but your heart's in the right place.
And I would want to be in the car with you.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun. I'm having fun with you. I think we're here to mostly talk about Meg Ryan, but I think Tom Hanks is also so charming in this movie, right? This like little monologue where he talks to himself about how many women he's had sex with and gets so excited when he thinks of, I think, either like a seventh or an eighth woman, right? He's like, 8! And he's like willing to bend over to show Rob Reiner his butt so that Rob Reiner can tell him whether or not he's got a great butt, right? Like, this is a very charming man. And I think that two less charming people cannot pull off this movie because in this movie, we only see them together in the same shot at the very end. There is no kiss. There is no interaction. There is no, like, do they have chemistry? It is like two totally separate movies of them, like, moving toward each other. But basically, we have to just be like, I want Sam to get everything he wants in the world. I want Jonah to get everything he wants in the world. I want Annie to get everything she wants in the world, and they can all go horses, horses, horses together in the car next year.
Yeah.
And they would just be so happy, the three of them, with Howard the teddy bear.
They're all going to sing horses together. Okay, I'm going to do something aggressive here, which is I'm just going to pause us because I do want to talk briefly about mediation and the logic of media in this film.
And we're going to do this every episode. We're going to choose one thing that Hannah gets to stop and be like, I'm sorry, as a professor, we need to pause and discuss this. And luckily, Hannah, like Meg Ryan, is so charming that even if it's stalkery, it's going to be adorable every time you do this. Hannah, I hear your emergency stop.
My rant today is just going to be a detailed timeline of everything you did yesterday. But it's cute. Because I did it. No, I want to talk about the movie's obsession with the logic of mediation and particularly with broadcast. Because what's really vital for the relationship that we have to the relationship between Sam and Annie is that we have to believe as viewers both that Sam is an inherently desirable romantic partner and that Annie is the right person for him. Otherwise, the fact that they never meet during the movie is not going to work. And so we are positioned by the logic of the film as audiences in a parallel fashion to the way that Annie is originally positioned as an audience. So we see Sam participating in, importantly, broadcast media. He is being interviewed, and his interview is being broadcast across the country to many, many people, in particular to many, many women.
And this is on the radio.
It's on the radio. We are notified to the fact that many women are hearing this and many women are responding to it by the fact that Annie stops and gets out of the car at one point and goes into a diner to get a coffee, I think.
Tea with the bag out.
So she's ordering tea with the bag out. She overhears the women in the diner also talking about having heard Sam on the broadcast. Women are consistently being positioned in the film as audiences to media. So we are the audience for the broadcast. We are the many to whom that is going, whereas Sam is the singular object of desire who is being broadcast outwards. We are also positioned as being the audience for film. Specifically, over and over again, we're reminded that romantic movies are made for women and matter to women. There's recurring interest in the movie in An Affair to Remember, and that is the favorite movie of women exclusively. And a really important thing that this does is align us as viewers of the movie with the women in the film who are also the audience, and takes seriously the emotional stakes of being a viewer or a consumer of mass media. So we see it happening in the film, and we are doing the thing that the women in the film are doing. And that is positioned as not only a legitimate activity, but an activity that can lead to meaningful human connection. And there's a bunch of really exciting things about that. One is that the film is very clearly assuming a woman's gaze and is positioned and centered around the logic of a woman's gaze. But the other thing that it does is show you that you can be part of a mass audience for a mass-produced medium, but that you as an individual can nonetheless be special and have a special, unique, particular relationship to that medium. So it can be true simultaneously that thousands of women heard Sam and were drawn to his story and fantasized about ending up with him. And it can also be true that that was only the right ending for Annie. And what that does for us as viewers of a romantic movie is essentially say it is both legitimate to participate in the consumption of mass-produced romantic narratives and a recognition that you are part of a mass audience in no way belies the possibility that you as an individual might get to have a special experience related to romance.
And your consumption of the mass media can actually help you find the kind of love that you want, right? Because both consuming this like Dr. Marcia Fieldstone interview on the radio for Annie, and then also watching An Affair to Remember, she needs to do both of those things in order to meet Sam and Jonah in the way that she does. And she is informed by both of those things. It's not just like, it's great that you're watching this and you can still find someone. It's like, it's actually kind of vital that you watch this and integrate it into your personality. It's going to help you find someone in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. So romantic media becomes itself a vital part of the experience of finding the magic that you're able to find in your life, which is sending a very strong message to the presumed women viewers.
Hannah, we talked about what we think that this movie thinks about love. What does this movie not know that it thinks? What is the subtext of this movie?
So there's one subtext that I am really interested in getting into personally, which is that contemporary masculinity is under threat somehow. So, for example, Walter, the lovely but wrong fiance, there's a lot of time spent emphasizing how many allergies Walter has.
And he seems to have really normal allergies. I know a lot of people who are allergic to strawberries.
But in that early scene where Walter is meeting Annie's family for the first time at this big Christmas Eve dinner, and they're talking about the wedding, right? They've announced that they're engaged and they're talking about what the wedding's going to be like. And Walter has to keep turning down possibilities for the wedding because he's allergic to things. That seems to be, according to the logic of the film, a failing of Walter's. And
yes,
and feels to me to be countered to the fact that, one, Sam doesn't seem to have any allergies. Allergy free, but also that Sam is explicitly resistant to the idea of therapy, right? Like a friend tries to give him a card for a grief counselor and he's like, absolutely not. This is not what I need. He's upset that Jonah has phoned into a therapist and that the therapist wants to talk to him. There seems to be some sort of logical alignment between like he's an old-fashioned guy and wants to meet people in person and like allergies and therapy. And I'm not quite sure how to articulate what I think is going on there in the movie, other than a sense of like having a lot of allergies and going to therapy is a contemporary phenomenon, and that those contemporary phenomena are somehow undermining or threatening masculinity.
I'm trying to think if I agree with you.
I'm not sure if I agree with me.
What I definitely think is true is that part of why Walter is not right for Annie is that he has all these annoying allergies. She's not going to be able to have salmon and strawberries at her wedding, which is what her parents had. And isn't that annoying? And therefore, they don't have magic. There's also this like great scene of the two of them getting ready for bed where Annie is helping him with like his humidifier and his tissues and all the things that he needs with all of his allergies to go to sleep. And it's very clockwork, right? It's very functional and therefore not magical. They're not falling into bed together, like snuggled up. It's not sort of like easy for them to do anything. Whereas Tom Hanks, he can just go to New York, right?
Yeah.
With no luggage to go get his kid. He definitely doesn't need any allergy medication. I agree that the movie is saying something particular about masculinity in this moment, right? Because there's a conversation when Tom Hanks is considering dating again. He goes to his best friend in Seattle, Rob Reiner, and is like, I haven't dated in 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. What is it like out there? And Rob Reiner gives this like I think it's supposed to be like a depressing view of what dating is like for men in the early 90s, which is like women don't put out, they're going to ask you out, which is like somehow emasculating. But the good news is that you split the bill.
And Sam is like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I could
I will
never.
not be splitting a bill. I will be paying for the entirety of the bill. And when he asks that woman out who he's interested in, he's like really kind of shocked and affronted by the fact that she makes all of the choices about the date. He's like, no, that's my job.
I guess my curiosity is, Hannah, is it saying that masculinity is under threat, or is the movie saying, God, men are kind of clueless?
I mean, why not both?
Yeah, right. I think it's both, because I don't think that conversation between Rob Reiner and Tom Hanks, I don't think we're supposed to think like, wow, this is a really astute critique of modern femininity that the two of them are making. Look at how complicated and difficult it is for heterosexual people to date in 1993. I think that we're like, look at these goobers. Like, they have gotten this data from women, which is like, no, I'll pay for half. No, I have an opinion as to where we're going to eat. No, it matters to me if I'm attracted to the man. I'm not just going to try to make sure that the man is attracted to me. And they've gotten this data and like they have computed it. And what they are spitting out is so stupid.
Isn't that a kind of crisis, though? Like, isn't part of what we're being shown that in the world of contemporary romance, which is complex, mediated, has new emergent power dynamics that upset traditional power dynamics, that men are fumbling for their position? So maybe masculinity in crisis, or masculinity in the midst of transformation rather than under threat.
Certainly in the midst of some sort of transition.
Yeah.
I also just don't want to conflate what, and I don't think you're doing this, but I don't want to conflate what Sam thinks and what the movie thinks.
Really key.
Sam thinks that women shouldn't ask the man out and that like absolutely he has to pay for everything. But the movie thinks that Annie should go to New York, should write this letter, should pursue this guy, and that if Sam had it his way, he would end up married to someone who he has no magic with.
Mm-hmm.
That it's Annie actually like taking a risk by breaking up from a clockwork marriage and doing these sort of like big heroic actions that gets them together.
Sam ends up fine because Sam doesn't have allergies and doesn't need to be cared for in the way that Walter does. And I really want to name that the movie frames Walter's allergies, his need for like a device to help him sleep. Like, it frames that as a disruption of the possibility for magic. I mean, it's a pretty ableist thing for the movie to do.
Absolutely.
And it suggests that a man who has physical needs like that is at odds with the kind of romance that we are being led to desire. Like, Walter's not, at the end of the day, the desirable romantic partner. I mean, the way Walter responds on Valentine's Day at a romantic Valentine's Day dinner in New York City with his fiancée,
where he's just ordered a $200 bottle of champagne
and has given her a beautiful family heirloom ring. She says, actually, I'm leaving you for somebody I've never met. And he goes, yeah, fair. Like, what?
So this is where I'll push back. I think that Walter is so sexy in this scene because he says to her, Annie, I don't want to be anyone's second choice. She's like being like, I think maybe I need to do this. And we don't see the whole conversation, but he kind of breaks up with her. And he's like, I think I'm pretty great. I think I should be someone's first choice. And then the Empire State Building lights up into this heart in the background. And she says, I think it's a sign. And he's so graceful, right? He's like, who needs a sign? Go. This relationship is clearly over.
I mean, the relationship is shockingly transactional, as that breakup really demonstrates. I also don't want to conflate what the movie thinks with the way that I think you and I as viewers are drawn to Walter. Because Walter, like I can't remember her name, but the woman who Sam briefly dates.
Victoria with the hyena laugh.
Yeah. So there are characteristics of both Walter and Victoria as the sort of failed or wrong romantic partners for these two characters that are positioned not just as a bad fit, but positioned by the logic of the movie as objectively undesirable characteristics. And I really noticed that with Victoria because they seem to be giving us too much time with her laugh. And I was like, I find this laugh very charming. And I think it's really cute that she laughs really hard at every joke he makes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can also tell by the way the camera lingers on her when she laughs that I'm being told that this laugh is undesirable. And I feel the same way about Walter's allergies, is that that's not being presented to me by the film as a neutral characteristic. That's being presented to me as an undesirable characteristic. And you and I, as viewers, can like very easily wiggle our way through that argument that the film is making and be like, excuse me, Walter is awesome. And having allergies is in no way a deterrent to being an attractive romantic partner. But it doesn't mean that it's not subtextually part of the logic of the film.
Absolutely. Okay, Hannah, we've had this complex conversation about Sleepless in Seattle. Finish the sentence for me. You should watch Sleepless in Seattle if
you feel really excited about incorporating scarves into your wardrobe, or you're giving your kitchen a shabby chic makeover because she's got a really nice kitchen.
Yeah, it's definitely shabby chic inspiration.
Oh my God. Okay, Vanessa, your turn. Finish this sentence for me. You should watch Sleepless in Seattle if
you've always wanted a map in your kitchen and or you've always wanted to register for China at Tiffany's.
The moment where Sam strides over to the wall in his kitchen where there's a pull-down map and pulls it down.
I have aspired to that my whole life because I saw this movie at the age of 11 and I was like, that is what adulthood is going to be, is when I have a pull-down map in my kitchen.
Inexplicable and perfect.
Well, Hannah, next week we are going to be watching this famous final scene of Sleepless in Seattle and looking at it very closely. And I picked a specific scene that I want us to watch as our Patreon perk, which is a favorite scene of the movie for me, which is when Victor Garber and Rita Wilson visit Sam and Jonah and they have dinner and Rita Wilson acts out An Affair to Remember while crying.
It's a tour de force.
It is so offensive and so charming, that scene, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you.
Oh, I can't wait.
And so if you want to hear that, subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/hotandbotheredrompod. Hannah, first episode. What a delight.
Oh, I am so excited to keep having arguments about contemporary masculinity with you.
So one of the scenes that really stood out to me on watching this movie is when Annie starts researching Sam using old-fashioned technology and then hiring a private investigator to follow Sam. I was like, is this legal? She's pretending to write a story in order to spend resources from the Baltimore Sun to go and follow this man. So I wanted to get an expert on the phone. And so we decided to call Lo Dodds. Lo Dodds is a lawyer who was the legal consultant on the podcast Veronica Mars Investigations, one of my all-time favorite podcasts. And she uses her degree to make ridiculous TikToks and contribute to various podcasts, including this one. She also writes fantasy romance novels. Her first one was All the Disappearing Things, and her second one, All the Forgotten Things, came out yesterday and is out now. Let's give Lo a call. Hi, Lo. Thank you so much for getting on the phone with me.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Have you seen Sleepless in Seattle lately?
I did watch it on Saturday just to refresh my memory of this whole 90s saga and the internet of the 90s, which is impressive.
Thank you for doing that. You did not have to. So Annie hires a private investigator, theoretically as a journalist, as part of a story, but it's a fake thing. This just had me wondering, can anyone hire a PI to follow anyone? Can I just hire a PI today to follow my ex-boyfriend?
You can hire a PI. Anyone can hire a PI, but hiring of the PI does not absolve you from any liability. The PI's license doesn't give them the right to do anything illegal. So if you hire someone as your agent to do something illegal, you are also going to get in trouble for that. So following someone, you don't have any expectations of privacy when you are in public. So as long as they are in public and they are following the law, as far as taking those photos in public, like she did to Tom Hanks, he was in a public place, in a restaurant, that's all fine.
Okay. Do agencies vet the reason why you're hiring them and they're like, yeah, that's fine, or no, that's creepy? That's not up to the PI.
It would depend on the agency. So established PI firms, I don't know, maybe they have shadier departments but if you hire them, I'm sorry, I need to follow this guy because I'm obsessed with this celebrity, there may be firms that are willing to take that job and other firms that are going to go, no, that's going to reflect very poorly on me. Just like a law firm, certain cases, you're not going to put your name on those pleadings. As a PI, you have to do an apprenticeship in order to get your license. PIs have to do that when they get their license, and then they have to follow another PI around for a while. So depending on who you end up with or who you apprentice under, they might be a little shadier, or they might be more no, that's not what we do here. We, make sure to find deadbeat dads and stuff like that.
Are there ethics around professions? Journalists can hire PIs. I'm guessing a doctor couldn't hire a PI to follow a patient, or if they're in public, it doesn't matter. There aren't values along with professions.
So I think that this would be more within the scope of your profession. So as an attorney, I hired PIs frequently,
right,
for purposes of debt collection. For instance, so Annie hires them to do a background check on Sam, that's his name. And for a background check, you're going to go find things that you could go find those things. If you had a subscription to LexisNexis or Westlaw, or even just go look up on your local court website, you can find out a lot that's just available. Just you might have to pay for some of it. But she's going to want to know if he has judgments against him for past child support or convictions or censures on his license, his architect's license. I mean, a doctor probably wouldn't hire a PI to go follow someone. That doesn't seem within the bounds of what they're doing, but it's not illegal. I mean, it's not illegal for anyone to hire a PI.
You're telling me that I can do everything a PI can do.
It's that you have, in the sense, you have the ability to get a lot of the same information they have based on the databases that are available to us and public information that is available to us. Lots of people just don't know that stuff is available to you. There may be laws in varying states that you cannot practice medicine or law without a license. If you are cutting up people on a table, someone is going to come after you regardless of how good your intentions are about cutting them up on the table. So as a PI, states may regulate them to certain standards. But again, like I said, nowadays you have so much information at your fingertips, and who's going to stop you from going to a restaurant and being like, oh, that's my girl's ex, cha-ching, that's it.
Can I follow someone?
I mean, yeah, you could follow someone. There's a point at which it's going to become harassment if they know you're following them. But yes, you could follow someone as long as they are in public. Unless someone starts trying to make money off you, then it's a problem. If you start being implicated in other crimes, you start breaking and entering into their house, like to get information on those. PIs can't do that either.
Right.
They can't leave dead cats for your ex or anything like that. Those are all things that are not going to fly.
Can I pretend to be someone else? That's something that PIs do all the time on TV. Can I be like, hi, my name is Susan Brown, and I am a psychiatrist, and I am concerned about my friend Lo. Have you seen her act erratic lately?
I think when you start impersonating other people, you do get into the area of fraud.
Oh, right. Fraud.
Or if you obtain information through false means that you shouldn't have. Impersonating a psychiatrist, also bad. You have just committed a crime by practicing medicine without a license.
Damn it.
But if you just have a conversation with someone, you start, it's amazing what people will just tell you while you're sitting in a waiting room.
Exactly.
But yes, if you delve into that area, especially into an area where you can get sued for defamation or slander or harassment or anything like that, where someone's going to say this is a bad idea and you now owe hundreds of thousands at a judgment for some reason.
Last question, I swear. What is the difference between following and stalking?
Stalking is usually a legal definition. So if you go look up their penal code, it'll usually tell you what the state determines. And there is generally stalking is with an intent to harass. So you have some intent to make this person afraid or make this person aware of your presence in some nefarious way. But there is a intention there. If you just happen to take the same train as someone every morning, like, can't slap you with stalking.
Right. I was stalked. We only threatened to get a restraining order because he's a teacher. And so that was enough of a threat to get him to stop.
That is a super serious situation. And I think that's why people take to naming and shaming these days. Social media is a lot more powerful to get someone to back off than sometimes the police can deal with because they can't make it fit into the legal crime box. But blasting someone on Twitter or on TikTok or something does seem to get a good reaction there.
The other thing that I found was just like that filing a restraining order, you had to go to court and actually see the person, which is exactly what you don't want to do if someone is stalking you. One of the things that a stalker wants is attention. And I was like, okay, like now you're going to get exactly what you want. You're going to get me in a court and then you have to renew it. It's not a super easy thing to do.
It's not. And this right to face your accuser situation also comes a lot up with child victims because people are just like, you're re-traumatizing people every time you're making them do this. Yes, I understand the point of it. You don't want some faceless person telling you you've committed a crime, especially if you are innocent of that crime. But yeah, it is a very difficult thing for victims to do. And again, it just puts the onus on the victim. But yeah, restraining orders are difficult. But again, for someone like a teacher and you start getting slapped with stuff that keeps you away from a school, that's a problem.
I know. It was so effective. Do you think what Annie does, if you were Sam and you found out that she had hired a PI in order to see if you were cute or not effectively, how would you feel?
I don't understand. I'm so mad that there was no epilogue in this movie. It made me so furious, but I don't understand how that would have gone down. I mean, she could have said, she was a journalist. It's in her nature. She just wanted to make sure she wasn't writing to someone who sucked, and that's flattering. But there you go. That's the line between unrequited love and, passionate love affair is whether or not she wants it. So if he's into her, then, that's romantic. Not at all weird.
Oh, that's so funny. Right. The difference between stalking and love is consent. And so it's actually, right, like it's all in the eye of the beholder.
It's like the unrequited love always seems like those books about it seems so romantic. You're like, no, unrequited love is a romantic way of calling it harassment.
Yeah.
It was requiting. In his case, he requited it all the way, right away.
Yeah.
So irresponsible as a parent, but you know what it is.
Lo, thank you so much for coming on. You're my favorite legal advice giver ever. So I'm so grateful. And everybody go buy Lo Dodds' second romance novel, All the Forgotten Things. It came out yesterday. Congratulations on your new book. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed being on. I'm happy to give you legal advice whenever you ask.
You've been listening to the first episode of Hot and Bothered with our new magnificent host, Hannah McGregor. Hannah, we're so excited to have you on the show. We are a small show, so we need your support to run. If you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/hotandbotheredrompod. We'd also love if you could leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. We are a Not Sorry production. I am the executive producer, Vanessa Zoltan. We are edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman, and we are distributed by Acast. Thanks as always to our soulmate level patrons, Molly Reilly, who we would chase through an airport to declare our love to, Becky Boo, who we'd wait for hours on the top of the Empire State Building for, Elizabeth Schweinsberg, whose heart we would play a game of one-on-one basketball for, and Lauren Bayer O'Connell, who we would call up on stage to dance with us in front of the whole summer camp. Special thanks this week to Lo Dodds and to our team, Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Aramas, Courtney Brown, and Stephanie Paulsell. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
I need somebody to make a chart plotting Meg Ryan's hairstyles against presidents of the United States.
Yes, please, somebody.
We'll see if there's a correlation. You know, I love data.